Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. December 10th. I said that I would do post every day for all the rest of December, but I did not. You know what happens when we do this sort of make promise and not meet promise. It's not good. But we try again in future to do more promise, make promise, and fulfill promise if we make promise. So anyway, we missed few days. Last day we did, I think, week ago, 5 days ago. I don't know, but we made promise we shall continue to post this as the rest of December. So anyway, today is December 10th, 2019. I post date because I want to be able to talk to view this when I'm 90 or 140 years old and look back and see myself years past. Anyway, hello everybody and nobody. Hey, so talk about a couple things. This will be a short one again. Very busy. It's holiday. Not sure if you know, but at this stage of my life, I have a couple of businesses in retail. And this particular time of the year is the busiest time. Very large percentage of your business happens in this particular month. So you kind of shove a significant percentage of your business into December, which is kind of crazy. So there's lots of shipment, lots of processing, lots of transactions, lots of everything. Everything is double, tripled, quadrupled, 6 times what it normally is. So anyway, that is one of the reasons why we have not posted. I actually missed. I said that I was going to make a prediction about Anthony Joshua and Ruiz. I may have posted a prediction that I thought that Joshua would win, but I wanted to do something a little more descriptive, which I should have just kind of said I expected Joshua to win. I could not make a concise prediction as I didn't have the opportunity to really view a lot of the footage of interviews and training footage and just overall demeanor. But I will tell you, I did watch the weigh-in and the sort of stance or standoff, or whatever you call it, where they look at each other. And Joshua looked like a man on a mission, and Ruiz looked like a man out of place. And so I don't think that Ruiz understood the gravity of his position because maybe sometimes when people are in a position where they're never given an opportunity. And in boxing, you may not know this, but there was a point in time in my life, maybe about 10 years ago, where I was a boxing promoter. And it didn't last for a long time. I actually I signed a couple of boxers, and I got a fight scheduled with Golden Boy. I won't mention who I got the fight with or who I had signed, because there is a bit of a backstory with it. But anyway, so I say all that to say that I'm very familiar with the business. So, and when I say very familiar, I mean I'm familiar, but I'm not an expert at anything. But anyway, I do know the business a little bit, and having spent some time in it, I used to have a good friend that was actually in the business as a promoter, and sort of just paying attention to what he did, and I found myself being a promoter myself. So sometimes when guys like Ruiz, I'm familiar with guys like Ruiz because boxing has a tendency to choose opponents and to choose opponents to build the confidence of the actual boxers. And so, for instance, let's say if there's a young and upcoming boxer, they're not going to give him any difficult fights for his first few fights, sometimes as many as 10, the first 10 fights, and sometimes more. And even up to, a large percentage of his fights are people who they know that particular boxer can beat. And how they do this is, well, there's a number of ways they do it, but one of the ways they do it is they certainly check the person's record to see what their record is. So for instance, if there's a guy who is an up-and-coming boxer that they want to make a star, and he has 5 fights under his belt, they'll choose somebody that's like, 0-15 or 0-10. I mean, there are literally guys out there that essentially volunteer to get beat up. I actually talked to a couple of these guys, one in particular in Mississippi, and he was really, literally, his resume was, don't worry, I got knocked out in my last seven fights. It was essentially his resume and his claim to fame and his pitch or his selling point to me about getting him about to fight. So it's kind of sad. Needless to say, I did not actually sign that person or give him a fight, but there are guys like that. And so Ruiz is not that type of person, not that type of guy, but he is a guy who has not taken advantage of, well, he's sort of been taken advantage of throughout his history. And what I mean by that is he wasn't given the fights that he probably deserved. And he had a reputation for being a good fighter and a tough fighter. And what I mean by tough fighter is not just like his mettle or his toughness, his personal toughness. I mean tough for the person that he's fighting. And so you got to have a couple of things as a boxer, and even I think even as a UFC person, you have to have the ability to draw a crowd because it is a business. And so you have to have a brand and a name and a following and people that are interested in what you have to offer. They want to see you fight. You probably need to have girls that are interested in you because you are a specimen of some sort, a male specimen of some sort that they would have interest in, and many other attributes that would come with being a star, with a star athlete, that is. And Ruiz at 5'11", whatever his height is, and 200, almost 300 pounds he came in at this fight, definitely doesn't have the star quality or the appeal of a superstar, at least in the eyes of the average person. And so with that created some difficulty for him in terms of drawing crowds and people having interest. The other thing, like I said before, is that he was a difficult person to fight, and he was a good fighter. Apparently, he has great skills, and he displayed those skills in the Anthony Joshua first fight. So I think that it is unfortunate that when you are in that position for so long where you're not given a shot, and maybe some of the fights that you've had in the past are not noteworthy in terms of public notoriety, you sort of take on that mentality of a person who is just fighting for that day and for a paycheck, essentially, and a small paycheck at that. So I think he carried some remnants of that particular mentality into the second fight. He said that he partied too much, which I've heard this before. There was another Mexican heavyweight, his name was Arreola. And I think he the same exact thing, he did the same thing, and this was maybe 10, 15 years ago, where he had the opportunity to fight for the heavyweight title. He definitely wasn't a champion because Ruiz was the first Mexican champion. but he was a major contender, someone who had some notoriety and a following, and people were interested in. And he had some athleticism, and he was interesting as a boxer. But he himself also was not in great shape, and I think he missed his opportunity as well. Ruiz blew it. He blew his opportunity here today, or this past weekend. And I have some ideas about what he should do and what should be done with him, which I'll share at the end of this once I sort of talk a little bit more about the fight itself. But I think that he definitely blew his chance. But he's a good boxer, and in the heavyweight division, there's always as they say, a puncher's chance. So I will just go back to predictions. I did not make a prediction. However, I did predict that Joshua would win the fight. So what I mean is I didn't make a specific prediction. I didn't predict exactly what I thought would happen like I did with the Wilder fight. But I had a feeling that Joshua would win. And again, once I saw them face off, I realized that there's no way that Ruiz was going to win. And I hope am I calling him Ruiz? Yeah, I think it's Ruiz, right? Andy Ruiz, not Ortiz. Anyway, Joshua was on a mission, and he had really set his mind on winning this fight. He lost weight. He definitely looked thinner. He looked, if he could look more fit, he looked more fit, and he just looked like he was here to do a job and move on to the next thing. So now we have heavyweight division has never been more interesting. And I know many people are saying that, but I don't think in my recollection, other than I probably lived more through my dad's excitement and interest in the heavyweight division back in the Ali days, because I actually don't remember exactly what year Ali fought in his glory days, but they certainly weren't all of them weren't within the time frame for me to really understand what was going on in terms of how old I was. But so outside of Muhammad Ali, I don't remember, obviously, Mike Tyson. So since Tyson, there hasn't really been as interesting of a heavyweight division. And even when Tyson was fighting, there weren't as many interesting people fighting. Because when Tyson was fighting, there was Holyfield, who showed up later on the scene in terms of public interest, and there were some other fighters. And people will, if people ever hear this, they'll hate that I said this, but having lived in America, growing up in America, the what's the guy's name from Britain who was who ended up beating Tyson? I can't remember his name. He had dreadlocks at the time. To me, he was well. To me, as an American and as someone who was a Tyson fan, he was not. What is his name? I can't remember his name. Anyway, to me, he was not an interesting fighter. I felt he looked a bit lazy in the ring, and the fact that he beat Tyson. I mean, even though this is sort of allowed, I felt like when he hit Tyson and hurt him, he actually pushed him down versus him actually being knocked down. I can't think of his name. Anyway, it's probably better that I don't name his name in case him and I are in the same room one day. But hasn't been as interesting in the heavyweight division, as interesting a time in the heavyweight division as it is now. And so now we have Wilder, we have Fury, we have Joshua, And I think that's it. That's the trio, that's the trio of heavyweights that people have the most interest in. And if nobody else is coming to mind, that's because they don't really matter and they don't have enough star power to garner any interest from me in particular. But I really think anybody. And if you go online and search heavyweights, these are going to be the names that come up, and these are going to be the people that are going to be vying for that number one position, pound for pound, or unified heavyweight champion. And so I got to say that Joshua, in the highlights that I saw, because I actually didn't see the fight was middle of the day, our time here in California. I think it was either noon or 2 o'clock or something outrageous. And we had an event to do, so I wasn't able to see the fight. I watched the highlights later, and then I watched the full fight later. But the highlights that I did see, I could see that Joshua basically boxed him the whole fight and moved around the ring. I didn't see very many shots land from Ruiz, and one of the things I did see was that Ruiz landed the same shot that he landed in the original fight that knocked Joshua down. And he landed that shot a couple times, and Joshua actually took those shots pretty well. And so I think there was a buzz. I think he did get buzzed in one of the rounds with one of the shots. Although he did a good job of holding his composure and keeping himself together. But anyway, it was the highlights were great, and now we have to see who's going to be the number one, the heavyweight in the world. And I'm just going to make a prediction. It's probably going to be Wilder, because doesn't have the best boxing skill, but has developed skill, and it keeps getting better every day and every fight. And he's already essentially, although I sometimes I think people say that Fury won that first fight, and I just the bias is just, I don't get it. I do get it, but I don't get it. If you count when Fury was out on the ground, if you actually do your own count, I mean, he was down there for like 12, 13 seconds, something crazy like that. So technically the fight was over. And other people argue that he got up and actually won the round. But the point is that if it was under normal conditions where you actually don't allow a person 12 seconds in a fight, he would never have gotten up. So anyway, definitely not the same count that Ortiz got. So I think Wilder's going to end up at the top of the division. Unfortunately, Joshua may do a good job of avoiding being hit, but here's the issue. He did get hit by Ruiz a couple of times in a couple of flurries. And he has had problems with defense in the past, and has been put on his butt a couple of times too. And the thing is if Wilder hits any of these guys one time, they're going down. And so probably going to see, technically Fury's dodging Wilder. And so you'll probably see Joshua and Fury fight before any of them fight Wilder, because that's really their only opportunity. Joshua will probably beat Fury because Josh seems like he's preparing for Fury already by working on his boxing style. And Fury is not going to fight Wilder next, although I think they have something scheduled. I would be shocked to see that happen. But I think I think Joshua and Fury may fight next. However, in reality, Joshua's probably the bigger star. I think he's the larger draw. He has a whole country behind him. And unfortunately, Wilder does not have a whole country behind him, because we have some issues in our country right now, and it's preventing us from getting behind, all of our superstars. So sad to say, but that's the truth. I don't think I need to really go into anything else. There was, I guess, for the sake of just time stamping this for the future, we had another shooting today that was it wasn't tens of people like the shootings normally go in America, but in Jersey City there was, I think, 3 people were killed, and a police officer as in addition to that, and also they say that the suspects were killed too. So another situation where people are dying before they should. So that's sad for all of those people, with the exception of the suspects. So outside of that, that's it. Well, I guess another timestamp issue too is they dropped 2 articles of impeachment today, and they're very simple. They are, wow, I just realized the whole time I was talking, I was looking down at my notes. But anyway, impeachment articles are abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. So here's the thing. Unlikely that this will happen. I can't see them getting enough people to get behind this, because it doesn't appear as egregious enough to the American people, and the Republican base is not budging. The Republican politicians are not budging, and so therefore it's a very weak impeachment process. But I tell you what is going to happen. What's going to happen is who knows? I don't think he will be impeached. But let's say, even if okay, so let's just say he's not going to be impeached. I'm just going to go on the line to say impeachment's not going to happen, and he will be reelected, and it will be a landslide. He will destroy any opponent, all including Bernie Sanders. I don't care. They could bring back anybody. It's over for the Democrats, and it may be over for the next 20 years, because there's literally nobody around that's remotely interesting except for Tulsi. So, and I'm not saying that I support any of the candidates. I'm just saying that I'm just stating the facts, what I believe to be the facts, and what the future holds, because it's all about predictions and putting yourself out on the line for what you think might happen. I think it's interesting to kind of commit to something and sort of etch it in stone, or etch it in the digital wave. That's it, guys. See you soon. Adios.